there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this podcast. We are the Varside Spurs Pubcast, and joining me today on his birthday is Rich. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. Turn me back for 5 minutes and look what's happened.
Yeah, not much, really, eh?
Yeah. I
No.
mean, I've been away for 3.5 weeks now, and it turns out they were the wrong 3.5 weeks to be away from football, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually, I've been away for a bit as well. Went to Santorini on holiday with my wife, and so I've missed a fair bit. Nearly got myself beaten up in a pub by a load of American Scousers on the Liverpool night. We'll come to that match in a minute, but yeah, apparently you were in Pompeii, weren't you? I think didn't you unearth Conte's tactics manual when you were there?
Yeah. We were a long way back. We were in Pompeii, and we were back in the Neolithic layers underneath Pompeii. So, 7,000 years ago. So nearly old enough for Conte's approach to football.
Yeah, I do hope when you found something, you just went all Frankie Howard. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, in this day and age, mate, all that sort of thing's lost on the students that I work with. I was talking to them about using our radar machine the one day, and I said, well, you have to fine tune the antenna to get the best signal. It's a bit like tuning long wave radio in to listen to the football when you're abroad. Hint, hint. And one of the students, deadpan, just sat at the far end of the room and went, "Yeah, this is the wrong generation to be using those analogies with, mate."
Yeah.
So I think Frankie Howard would have gone over their head.
Totally. Yeah. Oh well, but you're back safely, and yeah, it was. We both had a nice time away. From by all accounts, anyway. So, but what I wanted to touch on is something a little bit more poignant, actually. We heard just recently that Pete Hain passed, and he hadn't been well for a while, and so I just wanted to pay a little tribute to him. Someone that we both met, and I know you knew better than I knew. I think he was only 67, and I remember him actually. He sent me a message some while back when I had my health issue, and he just asked how I was, and he said he'd had some issues just recently, and he was waiting to find out. Yeah, at the time, little did he know what I waited. He later found out obviously he had pancreatic cancer, and that's never no cancer's good, but that's never a good one. And he had been retired for 6-7 years, hadn't he, I think, and he'd been doing a lot of good in the food banks and the secret history walks. Loved his music. I mean, in fact, I've got Pete to thank really for Ruby Turner following me on Twitter, because he was a big fan of hers, and she would occasionally message him as well. And when she saw I talked to him, she followed me. So yeah. Oh. But he was an all-round good person. But I know you want to say a couple of words.
Yeah, I wanted to start off today. Joviality and flippancy aside, just to mark it really. I won't pretend that Pete and I were the very best of friends, but I'd known him for the thick end of 9 years. Actually, I was thinking about it earlier today. I met him in the Annie. Shortly before Poch took over. So, back in the days of the old ground. And Pete was a well-known face for any of us that have ever sort of drunk in the Antwerp Arms, should I say. A lovely, welcoming guy, one of the most genuine people I've ever had the pleasure to meet. And I was on site on I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week when I found out. And I must admit it felt a little bit like a gut punch to me.
Mhm.
Obviously we'd all been expecting it. I went to see him not all that long ago, and I was actually really encouraged. He seemed really comfortable. He was propped up in his bed when I went to see him, but we had a couple of hours of chewing over things, and he seemed in really good spirits and actually pretty comfortable. And he said to me that for those that don't know, I've just been working in Pompeii. I've not been out there on holiday. And he said to me, with that in mind, that I got to go back and tell him all that had happened when I got home. So it feels doubly sad that I'm not even going to get to do that. So,
Mm.
but yeah, I did just want to mark it because he was a really smashing fella,
Mhm.
and I shall miss him.
Yeah, yeah, a real, proper Spurs, shall we say? And that sounds a bit of a cliche, but he was, someone who I think you could say truly had Spurs at his heart. Never moaned about anything. Only, he only had good intentions in terms of what he wanted for the club. Yeah, a wonderful man.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful man, and a timely reminder. When I saw him last, it was around about the time that Harry Kane signed for Munich, and he said, "Look, you can't get too wound up by this sort of stuff, lads.
mm,
Life goes on. There's more important things to worry about, like your family and yourself." And it was in no way a detraction of the importance of Spurs to him or to me, but it was a timely reminder to keep things in perspective.
mhm.
Um, but he's very sorely missed. I hadn't seen him at Tottenham for a year or so. Our paths hadn't crossed in that time, so I know that Tom Mitchell, a friend of ours, had seen him more recently.
Yeah.
Going to the ground. But yeah, a very very sad piece of news, and a very very big loss. And my thoughts are with Jill and with Ruby the dog, and
Yeah.
they're both all right out there. And yeah, I just wanted to say a few words on that.
No, thank you, Rich. Yeah, I mean, it feels almost incongruous to go to something else now, but I know he would want that. He's such a Spurs fan that he understood that the club goes on, after all of us. So
Yeah, yeah. He'd have listened to that and gone, "Get on with it."
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's go way back in time to the 30th of September. I was in a bar in Santorini, um, feeling reasonably optimistic, but knowing our history of playing Liverpool, not building my hopes up too much. Surrounded by Americans dressed as either Gooners or Liverpool fans. There was actually one actual Liverpool fan in there, and he was probably the most reasonable out of everybody. Nothing against Americans. Americans are great. In fact, I met quite a few on that trip, and they were fantastic, solid. Really, really good fun. But of course, sometimes I don't think they quite get the sort of delicacies of the game, and so I was caught over celebrating, shall we say, when we did win. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit here. We'll come back to it, but I just wanted to throw something in. Afterwards, I went straight up to the bar, and the barman said, "You don't want a beer." He said, "The way you're celebrating, you want champagne." So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go back over that game. I mean, it's a while back now, but there's a lot to unpack here, I think. Firstly, I called the result. I said 2-1 in the last pod with Paul Kramer.
Yeah.
How do you think we played overall? Do you think, like, we went down? They went down quite early. I think like within 26 minutes, 10 men, and then later on to 9. How do you think we played? Did that help or hinder us? Do you think in any way?
Well, I mean, with both of these games, these two most recent matches, I can only sort of half give my opinions on them because I've only been able to see highlights because of where where I was and the fact that I'm a cheapskate. I had a hotel without Wi-Fi, so, so such things do exist apparently, unbeknown to me.
Well, I wouldn't say it's on the cheapskate. What I would say is you were kind of mining your sort of inner person from the Pompeii era, where there was no such thing as Wi-Fi. You want to live it like the locals, like of the time.
It's like that almost famous quote, Lee. When in Pompeii, do as the Pompeii.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, very famous one.
Yeah, well, so anyway, I've seen some. I saw some highlights of the Liverpool game the day after, and like you say, actually, the difficult thing is that it actually seems like an eon ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, from what I could see, I thought we gave quite a good account of ourselves. I was really, really. I mean, like I say, I've read a bit about it, and I've seen some highlights, and I had it in my head that this. I know we've just been to the Swamp and played Woolwich, but actually this was, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? Form goes out the window and all those cliches. I think this was the first really big league test as a litmus test of how we were doing, and overall, I'm fucking delighted with it.
Yeah. I'd agree, mate. I felt to me like we went toe to toe with them, and they had the upper hand at 1 minute, and we did the other, a bit later on. But I mentioned that when I say, do you think it helped to hinder us? Because I kind of think it hindered us a little bit, because they as soon as they went down to 10 men, I mean, they still looked pretty dangerous. Actually, they didn't even look like they had 10 men, to be quite fair. But their tactics changed, so they were trying to hit us on the counter, and then when they went down to 9, it was just then us against them. It was just like a training kind of exercise where they were defenders against attackers, and it was exceptionally difficult to break down. There was very little space, so although we piled the pressure on, I'm not 100% sure it massively helped us, because I thought they did a great job at just packing their defense area and snuffing us out and hoping to hit us on the counter.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of frustration towards the end of the game, wasn't there? We weren't capitalising on that 2-man advantage. But, I know the cliche goes that it's, sometimes an advantage to play with 10 men. And I guess the mindset of playing with 9 is completely different, isn't it? That you don't even think about that outlet, and you become as disciplined as you can. And like you say about it being a training game, this is probably how they had to approach it, right? You guys are just playing against an attacking opposition. Now you have got to be organised. You have got to stay in your positions, cover a bit of extra ground. And, to be fair to them, they did do remarkably well at it. On paper, you would say we should have been winning that game by a couple of clear goals because of that 2-man advantage. But, we didn't. And actually, the final breakthrough came very late again, didn't it?
Yeah. And let's face it, they have got one of the best defenses in the league. And, as a team, as we say, even though they're gone down to 10 men, okay, they've taken away a couple of their attacking players, but the rest of the team is just like sitting in there and defending really well. Well, until the end, we'll come to that in a second. Do you think when Curtis Jones got a straight red because the VAR intervened, didn't they? And so it was a dangerous play. Do you think that was an actual red card? I don't know if you've seen it, Rich, because I know some players like ex-players like Carragher are saying never a red. It was it was an orange.
Well, I mean, you can't trust Jamie Carragher to be objective about anything that's got Liverpool involved in it, can you?
No. But I think Gary Neville was the same. I think he said he didn't think it was a red. But I know there is a case.
But he'd have done it to a United player. He'd have been calling for their red on a block.
Of course he would.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said to playing it in normal speed. I get that, because they look worse in slow motion. But whatever speed you played that one at, that looked like it could have been a leg breaker.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, we can have a whole other conversation about how they're tweaking their approach to giving out cards and the things that they're tolerating and not tolerating. And I guess we're still in that early part of the season where they're kind of almost sort of superannuating their response. They're going to the extreme to make a statement to try and, rein things in. It always reminds me of when they first when they first banned the professional foul in the 90s, you know, where you'd have a player that would go through one-on-one and Vinnie Jones would sort of hook them by the throat and throw them round. And suddenly they started sending people off for rather innocuous looking last man challenges to try and to get rid of it, you know. And I'm not saying that's what this was by any means, but I think this kind of move from the Referees Association to set this tone is probably borne out in the fact that they didn't offer any mitigation in that instance, and that he just went for it because you know, I suspect it was a conversation that they'd been having, you know, in their own meetings up until that point. You know, we have to go hard on this now. You know,
it doesn't matter though whether there was intent or not either, is it? You know, if it's reckless and he was out of control, that's you know, that and it was dangerous. That, you know, even whether it was intent or not doesn't, you know, it's neither here nor there. So you know, he can't complain that he didn't intend to do it. The fact is that was a very dangerous challenge.
I mean, you know, to give it to my analogy at work, that, you know, if I hurt somebody with a digger, it doesn't matter whether I'm meant to do it or not. You know, the consequences are the same for me, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's the same in law and anything else. You know, if you hit someone and they hit their head against a wall and, you know, that's it for them, you can't say, I'm sorry, my lad. Basically, I didn't mean it.
Break his nose. Yeah.
I just meant to knock his teeth through his ass. That's all.
Yeah.
So, anyway, maybe the one they can complain about is Jota's second. I mean, the second was you know, as obvious yellow card, but the first one, I think we got lucky there really with that first yellow.
Yeah, we did have the rub of the green, you know, as it were,
for a change. I mean, against Liverpool, for a bloody change.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't happen to a nicer football club, could it?
No, of course, you know. Well, maybe the other lot, you know, from the swamp.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah,
and then
I did note your comment yesterday during the Man City game.
Oh yeah, it doesn't probably bear repeating, does it?
Yeah.
But suffice to say, for those that are listening, my comment was, well, I'm probably going to get cancelled, but you know, I was wishing lots of cruciates and various, let's say, tropical diseases on the Arsenal team. Anyway, let's move on. So we obviously need to talk about, since we're the VAR side, the VAR debacle. Did you hear the audio from that at all? If you managed to catch up?
No, I didn't. No, I haven't heard the audio from this actually.
Yeah, it might be worth catching up with. It's a mess. I mean, it's human error. Like, I mean, you know, there's no get away from it. They should have had a goal, and it was complete farce, really. But like Ange said, you know, we're humans. Coaches make mistakes, players make mistakes, and they can. And I think this is where I've had some sort of I wouldn't say heated, but kind of like in-depth conversations with some other people on other WhatsApp chats where they're kind of like, oh, yeah, well, you know, should we play it and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, because that's going to set a terrible precedence. And then you know, where do you stop? That's a can of worms, that one. But you know, on top of that, when it comes to making mistakes, you know, that's happened from time immemorial. And this is not like a tennis match where you've got robots that can, you know, or goal line technology even, where basically the chip tells you. This is still humans operating it. So as much of a mess up as that was, it's human error. So you know, until you take that factor out of it, it's never going to be, you know, you're never going to have it be perfect, and it's going to, you know, affect a team one way or the other. And we've seen it. I mean, it may not be as blatant as that, but so many decisions are, because it's human judgment, are just basically subjective. You know, there's no empirical or, you know, objectiveness about this really, unless it's like blatant. You know, there's usually an element of subjectivity to it. The only difference with this, I suppose, is that it clearly was offside. They knew it. They made the wrong call. The game restarted, and they wanted to give the goal, but it was too late. So it was an absolute mess up, but good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in total agreement about, you know, with all of it. I think, we have to have a conversation about VAR that says pretty much what you've just said. That says, anybody that thinks that this system is going to remove error is deluded, because we don't have the technology to do it. Like you say about Hawkeye as a comparison, they're far more simple, clear cut decisions. They're much easier. They're in a much smaller space. You have the audio thing that they have in the cricket stumps now for a clip. Again, it's cut and dry. They're very, very simple thing. Football is played on a much bigger pitch. There is much quicker movement. For things like offside as well. I know we've spoken about this before in previous pods about, my point is always at which point where, when they draw in the lines, and let's take this incident away from it and talk about it in general. When you're drawing a line in between two players that ostensibly look level, is the line from when the passing player touches the ball, from when the ball leaves his foot, from when there is daylight in between the ball and his foot? Is it from when the ball and his foot make a noise? And if, is it, so how do you pick that sound up if you're going to go down that sort of route and say, well, when you make contact with the ball, it makes a noise and that's when the ball is kicked. Well, are you going to pick that noise out in a football ground,
Exactly, you can't.
And I think what we have to do is we have to say, let's lose the pretense that it's going to remove any error, right? Because it's not, because it's all subjective. Like you say, the empirical element of it is a nonsense. It's just a slightly improved way of doing it in some respects, and it's a slightly worse way of doing it in other respects. I detest it. I would rather them say, do you know what? We've had an experiment with VAR. We fucked it up a few times. We can't make it work. We've had, what have they had? 3 years of it now in the Premier World Cup, European Championships as well. We're just going to can the idea until we've got the technology.
Yeah,
we've got line technology, like you say. We can use that. We know that works. This is too dynamic. We don't currently have the way of doing it reliably. That isn't going to stop the game for 10 minutes at a time. Because, you and I have both been in the ground while we've been stood there waiting for a goal. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's the worst thing that I've encountered in modern football, in a litany of terrible things.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, well said. That is, I mean, if anything is worth scrapping it for, it's that alone. The fact that you can't properly celebrate a goal anymore. Of course, the goal goes in, jump up, but immediately afterwards, you're thinking it's going to go to VAR, it's going to be checked, and then there's all sorts of. It just takes some of the beauty away from the game. And the game's been riddled with some inconsistencies over the years. It still is, so. At least can we have the passion back from celebrating a goal? It's just there's nothing like that feeling where you just go absolutely crazy. To then have to wait 5 minutes afterwards to see that it's okay, and then have a sort of a mediocre celebration once again afterwards. It just feels ridiculous. And then,
does.
Sorry, go on, mate. I
was
just going to.
Yeah, go on.
That's all right. Sorry, I know we got a lot to say on this. I think all I was going to quickly say is just going back to your point on the sort of like drawing the lines, and even that is just is subjective. I don't see how you can have as pretended it is, where they draw these lines, that it is, you can measure it within a toenail. I'm sorry, this is pixels that are just superimposed on a screen that is virtually adapted for a screen. It's not like you've got like scanners all up and down the pitch where you can actually, like in Hawkeye, where you can actually tell if it's over this or not. What they're doing is, in retrospect, imposing a computer design on top of something which is live and doing the best for it. So you okay, if it's clear and obvious, yep. But if we're talking about a fingernail or a toenail, literally that's what we might be talking about at some points here, that he's in the tip of his shoulder or the tip of his boot or something. I really do not see how you can be millimeter precise like that. I think it's a nonsense. And yet we're fighting over it and people are arguing over it.
Yeah, it has solved nothing.
No.
This is the thing. It has solved nothing. It was brought in to do a job and it's not doing the job. And as far as I'm concerned, football is a human game and it should be played by humans and governed by humans and have done with it. we've had 120 odd years now of the Football Association and the league format, and it's always been the same. And yet clubs have been able to win trophies and get relegated and come back up, and they've survived. And it's not, they haven't gone out of business because of VAR, because of offside decisions, because of, on-field decisions. They haven't gone out of business. They've gone out of business because they've been managed badly, because of a whole host of other reasons that have, put them on a precipice that they've then been at the mercy of a bad decision on the pitch. And I think the only sensible thing to do is to say, do you know what? This is a people sport, and it's managed by people as best they can. And that's the best we can do with it. And like you say about, the arms, there's all these other things, like if two players are level on side and one club has got a shirt sleeve that's half an inch longer.
Yeah.
That's where they draw the line, isn't it?
Yep.
What they all going to end up wearing wife beater shirts in the next couple of years, just so that the shirts are shorter, so that they get a better.
Yeah.
I mean, what about if one player is actually ahead of another, but he's pulling his arm back in either way that people move their arms, go backwards and forwards? If one's going backwards and the other one's going forward, the thing sticks out. It's not a true reflection of who is ahead of who.
And all the nonsense about handball as well. There's 1 week it's a handball, 1 week it's not a handball, and it's all judged by VAR. But one team says it is, one team says it isn't. One team says that was deliberate as he was falling down, and you couldn't avoid taking his arms anywhere else, but he still was a penalty because it hit his hand. Another one, no, that wasn't, because he was trying to move away, but he still punched the ball. It's like it's zero consistency on that front. So again, like we were saying, tell me what this is actually solved. It's not solved anything.
Not solved anything, no, and it doesn't add anything to the experience of football.
No, it doesn't. It just subtracts.
Yeah.
Let's fuck it off. Yeah, fuck it off. That's what I say. And then we get dickheads like that danger of a guy Klopp who's been caught in possession of horse's teeth without a license. He's calling for a replay, or called for a replay, or maybe stopped slightly short of it, but more or less did in his passive aggressive form. It's like he did at the end of in the post match conference afterwards. His passive aggression is it's brilliant, but it's insidious. The way he's then saying to people, look, I really feel sorry for the referees because they had such a hard time because they didn't know how to cope with this game or run it properly. He's like, basically, he's gaslighting them, and he gets away with it. And then he's basically gaslighting everybody in the league and in the media, saying that really, because this is unprecedented, you all should be thinking and pushing hard for a replay here. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks.
Yeah, it is bollocks. And this idea that it's unprecedented is bollocks as well, because it happens on an almost weekly basis, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got afterwards, because of this sort of inflammation that he's created, sort of inflammatory remarks, you've got then people who are being racist to Destiny or Doggy. Now, unless I've missed it, not only has no one been caught, but what's been done about it? Fuck all's been done about it. We've had endless drivel in the media about this replay, but have we heard much about a Doggy's been abused racially on the socials? Barely a thing.
Yeah.
So what do we do? It really is time, I think, for deeds rather than rather than just words here. And I don't know what it is we can do, but maybe maybe there needs to be some kind of sanction, because they can cloud the waters and make it all kind of focused on something else. But the real issue here is something which seems to pollute our game when a result doesn't go someone's way, is them attacking players racially. It's still a scandal, and I think something I don't know what, but I know it's a complex one, but it just beggars belief that all the focus is on Klopp demanding a replay, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, Klopp demanding a replay, and the other thing I saw a lot of from where I was this this conspiracy theory that popped up that the referees had been to the UAE or somewhere, and of
Mm.
course it's Man City's owners. You know, Man City's owners own somewhere where they went the weekend before the game, so must be a conspiracy because they've been bought off. Otherwise, why would they do all this? You know, and like you say, there's talk about that, and there's talk about what Klopp says, and there's talk about VAR, and there's no talk at all about racism,
No.
because of course it's difficult. It's a difficult thing for people to have to confront in the media, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
oh, well, we've had the kick it out campaign for 15, 20 years now, and race, basically, it's achieved fuck all. You know, because in the stands, it's getting worse.
Yeah. You know, but you know, there's a real horrible imbalance there, and I think maybe it's just something they don't want to deal with. You know, obviously the side of that would be maybe you're looking at you know, sanctions or docking points or something like that. People will then claim, well, they're not really their supporters. They were, you know, pretending to be their support. You know, I know there's some difficulties around that, but it just yeah, you know, it just rankled with me. It didn't sit well with me, considering there was a bigger issue at play rather than his fucking ego. Sorry, with you know, with this whole ridiculous thing, which would have opened up a can of worms. And you know, even intelligent people were buying hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, I think there should be. You know, there should be a replay here. Come on, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
me getting off my high horse and asking for the teeth back for my high horse from Klopp. Anyway,
yeah, I think we should probably leave that one there, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I think so. But you know, anyway, but apparently we were lucky. You know, lucky Spurs.
Yeah,
as everyone keeps saying,
undeserved and all that. You know, but
yeah.
I'll take lucky over anything else, really.
Yeah. Well, you know, talking about being lucky, well, lucky Spurs turned up again at Luton, eh? So we'll get straight into that one. Actually, we didn't mention the goals in the Liverpool game. We were too busy sort of galloping away on our horse here. So Son scored the first.
Flogging that analogy to death, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. And then of course, given conspiracy theories, we all know that Matip had 5G implants in his legs by those people from the Saudis. They managed to sabotage, and then of course they sent a signal to his legs, and he scored an own goal.
Yeah, perfect. It was a beautiful finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, wonderful. I loved it. I thought it was cracking, and when it went in, I thought, what a finish!
Yeah.
That must be heartbreaking, though. I mean, the way they defended
fell to him and not Richarlison, you know.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. They would have been in Rosa, still in orbit in the moon now, wouldn't it? I think. Yeah. Oh, maybe we should touch upon that actually, Richarlison. What do you think? Because I mean, we both backed him, haven't we? We both, you know, really been, you know, saying that it will come good, but my arse is going a little bit on it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, I guess this is sort of moving on a little bit to the Luton game. That's the. Actually, before we do, I'm going to change the subject back to VAR for 1 minute, because there was one final point that I wanted to make on that somebody had done a table on all of the incorrect VAR decisions going against the Premier League clubs this season, and without all of the incorrect VAR calls, who's top of the league?
Spurs.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I'm with Jurgen. Let's.
Yeah. It's the same as that. If there were no VAR at all the whole season, Spurs be top.
Yeah. Hey, you never guess what?
Go on.
We are top.
Yeah, I know. And of course, you know, the media are saying we're joint top. There's no such thing as joint top. We're top.
We're top. Yeah.
Of course, you know, and of course, lucky Spurs are top, but title contenders Arsenal, you know, are on the same points. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, there was some fucking spunk spilled over them beating Man City yesterday afternoon.
What a lucky deflection that was.
Yeah,
that was unbelievable. You know that they. Yeah. Well,
I was heartbroken. Nobody got killed, seriously injured, caught any nasty diseases.
No, you know? No one was cut in two, broken cruciates or necks, or you know. Oh well.
No, terrible bloody afternoon.
Yeah, I think we should get asked for a replay.
I think we should ask for a replay. I think we should demand it.
Yeah, until someone's cut in half for that lot.
Did you hear the Brighton fans singing it at Liverpool?
Yeah, great, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And
They're gonna. I mean, to be honest, that's going to come back and haunt them now, isn't it? They're going to get that everywhere they go. If they're one down or something, or the fans are, there's a VAR decision that goes against an opposition side, they're going to be taunting them for the whole season now, aren't they?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And the other final point to make on it, that if we're going to have a replay on that game because of VAR, we ought to replay the Champions League final as well.
Yeah,
don't we?
yeah. Someone said, "See you in Madrid, Jurgen."
Yeah. Do you know who that was?
No.
Jan Vertonghen.
Was it? Oh,
Apparently
fantastic. I know he was, he's saying count me in as well. So yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So anyway, on to Luton and on to Richarlison then. We made fucking hard work of that, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I want to draw some positives from it as well. But yeah, I think we did. But
I mean, we should have been 3 or 4 up after 15 or 20 minutes, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Richarlison should have had 2.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. He hit the post, did he? I think I want to say. But yeah, had a couple of chances that were, he should have really buried, and then a confident player would have buried them.
Yeah, that one, Kulusevski whipped it into the sort of in from the right to the far post, the left-hand post, and he ran onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Made contact with it about 2 yards out, and it must have been more difficult to miss that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of them ones that you'd think he'd only have to make contact with it. If it had bounced off his arse, it had gone in. I think it sums him up. I'm still for him. I still think it will come good. I think that the rest of the team are doing so much heavy lifting around him that it's not a panic at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. I suspected the game wouldn't be as easy as some people thought it might be, but not for the reasons it turned out to be. What about you? What were your expectations? Were you surprised?
I mean, in real time, no. I expected us to come out strong, but I actually expected us to get a couple of early goals and for it then to be a bit of a non-event in the second half. And obviously what happened was, we fluffed those chances, and there were several of them, not just the Richarlison ones. And obviously that allowed them to grow into the game, which I think they did admirably well. I mean, they gave us a bit of a scare, perhaps. I don't know if scare is the right word, but they gave us a hard time, surely, in the second half. So yeah, it kind of. I did expect us to score some early goals and for that to kill it off, and when we didn't, it was inevitable. I'm actually surprised we did win, because for long periods, because I was listening to that on the radio actually driving back through France. So, and for long periods, I was thinking, this is a write-off. This is.
Yeah, I mean, when we were really peppering their goal, and like you say, we should have been a 3 or 4 up by half time. But when we were that wasteful, I was kind of getting a bit frustrated. But there was a sense in me that I think, oh well, this is going to be difficult. But I think, and that's where I thought it might be difficult. I thought that the fans would be right up for it and they would be resolute. But I actually, because we were so profligate, that's where I became a bit frustrated. I still suspected we might, get the goal, but then, of course, Basuma has an absolute brain fart, which has been unlike him. He's been so good. He's been one of our best players. But then, the first booking silly, but the second one, blimey! I mean,
I know,
just before half time,
it was an embarrassing one as well.
It was, yeah.
I know there were players around him, but there was nobody close enough to him.
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope that he had a serious bollocking for that.
Yeah. I mean, he left the referee with no alternative, did he? Really? I mean, he's such a blatant dive in that area that what else could the ref do? He couldn't just wave it on. He had to punish him for that because it was dreadful. It was so obvious, so embarrassing, and I'm hopefully he will be mortified by it. But yeah, like I say, surely someone would have given him a bollocking for that because that's that's brain dead.
I mean, it's something that I saw us do more of under Conte. This sort of the so-called dark arts, the cheating the ref, the sort of light touch professional fouls, the clipping of the heels, the going to ground, wasting time. I mean, we were a club that didn't really do it. I mean, you talk to any other supporter, they all say, "Oh, Harry Kane's always trying to buy a penalty," but never in that regard.
No.
We were a club that didn't do it, and I think if I remember this correctly, it seemed to be like a policy move from Conte, and perhaps Mourinho as well. Going a little bit further back, that look, everybody's doing this. If we're not doing it, then we're missing out. And I was never comfortable with us doing it. I thought it's a really shit part of the modern game. And when I saw that, like I say, I heard it on the radio in real time, and they said, "Oh, this is embarrassing. What a blatant dive. He's got to go for that." And of course, he went. There was no defending voices at that point. And then I watched it back later and just thought, what the hell was he thinking? No. I mean, you could even excuse it if we were 1-0 down in the last 5 minutes of a game, and desperation was coming. But before half time in a game that was level, when we'd had the lion's share of possession and half a dozen chances to score, there was absolutely no reason for it at all.
No, I mean, that wasn't the dark arts, that was the daft arts.
It bloody was,
yeah. I mean, I don't mind a bit of the dark arts. I think you've got to have a bit of that because everybody else is at it. So it kind of, you'd probably be a bit naive not to. But I agree. I mean, in an ideal world, don't like it, wouldn't want it. But everyone's doing it. But that is daft. That's not dark arts. That's just that's really, really silly. So obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the second half started, and and the game did turn out to be tougher than I expected. But only because we were down to 10 men, and now I think their crowd fancied it, and it felt like Doctor Tottenham to the rescue again, didn't it?
It did, and luckily for us, Adebayo, missed a couple of really strong chances.
Did he? Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I mean, Rich, you could have buried that.
I'll tell you what, mate. I was Andy in my day. I could have been a contender, Lee. That's
it. Yeah, come on, Brando.
Yeah,
you could have been, mate. Honestly, I would have put money on you scoring that.
Yeah. I'd have arrived about 15 minutes after the game finished, but I'd have got it on target.
Yeah, that was a shocker. But okay, and this is where I suppose what I mentioned before, people saying lucky Spurs again. But do you know what? I mean, there was a lovely. So we weren't. I don't think we were lucky, in the sense that this did feel like a new Spurs. Yes, they were a terrible team, but kind of leveled up with us being down to 10 men. And their crowd just really now sensing it and fancying it. It was a tough gig at that point. And then of course we got the 3 consecutive corners, and on the third time lucky, Maddison cuts it into Van der Ven, who was a brilliant finish. And
turning his body open to push it in. I mean,
yeah.
If we say that, Richarlison, would have found it more difficult to miss the target when he had the ball from a similar distance, that was actually quite a difficult finish, I think, because the ball came to him quite quickly from Maddison on the ground.
Yeah.
And there were players all round him. He was only a couple of yards away from the keeper. It was a lovely finish.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And then, of course, that was on the 52nd minute. And so it felt like we had a long time to cling on, but I don't know about you. I felt confident. I felt the way we were holding our shape, even though we were down to 10 men, we just sat. it almost, dare I say, it felt a bit more Conte-like at that point because we were a little bit more resolute. And that's the first time I've seen us being really resolute and then looking to hit them on the break. We used that to our advantage this time. And I thought Kulusevski had a really good game. You know, we kind of had we had this resilience, and I felt that Kulusevski was our out because, of course, then towards the end we sort of more or less took all our attackers off and put on like Højbjerg and all the kind of like defensive type style players because we knew they'd throw the kitchen sink at us. We weathered it. And then he was our out point. He managed to sort of roll them a few times and get up there. And we still, I thought, were going for it. I didn't get the sense that, you know, we even though we kind of played a little bit more compact, that we were going to settle for that. If there was a chance on, it felt to me like we were going to be sort of agile enough to take it. And you know, I mean, yeah, you know, as I say, Luton are shit. They're pretty crap, but. You know, that it may be a cliche, but arguably that was a game we might have lost in previous seasons. Do you think?
Certainly, we wouldn't have come away from it with 3 points in previous seasons. A man down before half time. You know, I mean, whether we'd have lost it or not. I mean, I know we lost a lot of easier games, perhaps in the last couple of years against, you know, often promoted sides. I mean, there's a couple of things to say on it. First of all, Kulusevski seems to be a little bit hot and cold at the moment. When he's hot, he's really fucking good. And it's nice to see that. I wonder whether or not this is still an after effect of him really coming back to his full potential following that injury. You know?
I can interject there, Rich, as well, though. Have you not noticed that he's the one player that they seem to keep on the whole match?
Yeah, I have noticed this actually, and perhaps his role in the team is developing for this. You know that, you know, he was a, you know, pretty much of a like a one shot sort of player at one time, wasn't he? You know, he cut in from the wing on the edge of the 18-yard box, and he was always in that, you know, far right quadrant of the pitch. You know. And he seems to be playing a little bit more of a developed role. He's obviously been given more responsibility, and perhaps he's rising to that. And as his fitness improves and the after effects of that injury go, it looks good, because it did look for a while like he'd been worked out, didn't it? You know,
yeah. And talking about rising to responsibilities, Romero. I mean, I thought Romero had a fantastic game, and I know Van der Ven got the man of the match, but. Do you know, really, Romero could have got it as well. I thought he was fantastic, and I just love that sense. You know, there's a collective togetherness, but that defense, when they defend and they make a good interception tackle, the way that they react, it's like they've scored a goal. I mean, did you see the images of Porro? And I thought he was fantastic as well, where he's kind of like giving it all this like fierce pumping and roaring at the, you know, into the crowd and everything. And he's just made a good tackle. But that's what it now they've got. They've seemed to have got this into them that, you know, those players take incredible pride in defending and defending well. And you can, you know, you can see that that kind of aggression and excitement that they've done a good job there.
Yeah, and I think as part of it as well, I would like to note, you know, I'm particularly impressed with the way that Vicario is growing into it. I mean, he made a couple of good saves at the weekend. Saves that I don't think Hugo Lloris would have made.
I mean, Lloris was always getting beat at his near post, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And I'm really surprised, because I expected him to take a lot longer to adapt to the Premier League, and you know, he seems to be a really good piece of business at the moment. It must help having that pair in front of him, because obviously he knows that Van der Ven's quick enough to cover if he's the last man. You know, and playing that system, you've got to have that rapid recovery player. You know, Romero's not all that quick, and obviously when you were pairing him with, you know, Eric Dyer or whichever other donkey they were sort of pulling in off the Tottenham High Road last season, you know, that was the real weakness, even though we were playing a different system.
Yeah.
You know, there must be a lot more confidence with the players that are in front of him than Fraser Forster was able to have last season.
But I 100% agree. It's the unit that I think is looking fantastic. But you know, above and beyond that, I wholeheartedly agree. Vicario just really looks like an astute acquisition. I mean, I know it's early days, but just everything about the way that he uses his feet, the way he can get down. He's quick to get down. He doesn't get beat. He's near post. His reactions are great. His kicking's great. His game awareness is excellent. His confidence in passing when we're sort of trying to beat that press and we're kind of playing that sort of dangerous game where we're kicking around the penalty box and trying to outsmart them. And he's got good feet. It changes our game completely. No way could Lloris have done that. And I don't mean to pour cold water all over Lloris because he's been a fantastic, as we said before, fantastic servant to this club. And the poor bugger looks miserable as hell now in some of those photos. I wish it. Yeah, I mean, I do. I wish him well. He doesn't deserve an ignominious ending to his career at Spurs. He's a decent guy, and he's given us some of the best years of his career. But clearly, he's at the end of an arc for his playing career, and he can't play this modern style like Vicario can. And he's transformed us in defence, I think.
Yeah, he really, really, really has. And it made me think. After the weekend, I can't remember who it was because it was back in the dark ages when I was still on Twitter, as it was when we'd not long signed him, and somebody said that he reminded them of Aurelio Gomez, which sends shivers down my spine because I can remember I used to go a lot in them days, and fucking hell, he aged me. He
the
aged.
octopus.
Yeah, he aged me. Not only did I fucking dislike him because I was a massive Paul Robinson fan, but watching that fucker in goal was a stressful experience, and it made me think, I bet he doesn't remind you of Gomez now, whoever you are.
Yeah. He looked so good, didn't he? I mean, we've had so many of those players over the year where we go, do you know what? This player, he's going to be fantastic. He looks like the next comes in and, it actually turns out to be a donkey. Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. So I don't know if you saw Ange's post-match presser afterwards. No, he had a nice little wry smile. I think he kind of liked that sort of fighting display and the team like sticking to his principles, no matter what the sort of adverse circumstances were of that match. I think he took a lot of pride in that. And of course, on top of that, we've now taken the curse off of that shit kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know what that is. What is it? Is it taupe putty? What I don't know what it is, but it's fucking horrible.
yeah. It's the color of car body filler when you first mix the Arden.
That's it. Or that weird tarmac that that looks like it's kind of like sort of salmony color tarmac or something like that. I don't know what it's like. It's horrible gear.
Yeah. Fuck knows what they were thinking, but and of course we go into the week. Top of the league, despite Woolwich beating the greatest football team that have ever existed, or whatever they call themselves,
Well, obviously beating them regularly at home is not for everyone. They're celebrating it like they're celebrating it like they've won the Champions League.
Yeah. Taking 3 points off Man City, mate. We do that every fucking year.
Yeah. Anyway, if we may allow ourselves to go into hibernation over the international break, and then fast forward and we wake up. Now it's we've got Fulham next on the 23rd of October.
Yeah.
But there's going to need to be a few changes in there. How will we cope, do you think? We've got Basuma, we've got to replace. Solomon's out for a few months as well. So what's your thoughts on how we're going to cope maybe going forward? We do have Johnson coming back, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah. I think we can't be far off seeing a phased return for Rodrigo Bentancur either, can we?
No, I've heard like he'd be coming back in November. I don't know if that's like back in the first team or back as in like he'd be working his way back kind of thing, as the Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons once said. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I don't think it matters who we put out against Fulham. I think we're going to give them a fucking good seeing to.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think so. You got Brian Hill might come back. Lo Celso, don't know. I know he's a curate's egg, and he'll Lo Celso.
Well, I was rather hoping that he wouldn't be at the club anymore, to be honest. I've been wanting to see the
You,
back of that for about 18 months, you know.
yeah, I reckon you might get your wish in January, mate.
Yeah, well, if we could just persuade some silly sod to buy him, we'd be all right, you know.
Yeah, Barcelona, 100 million. Go on, good. All right, no, all right, 95. Come on,
Sell him
we'll
to
do your
Aston Villa
deal.
to buy everybody else, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think they did want him, didn't they? Apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, yeah. But
So yeah, but we are.
yeah,
I do think I do feel we're a little bit thin. I know we've mentioned this before. Like our first team's great, but if we get an injury to Vicario, Van de Ven, or Madison or Romero, we're screwed, aren't we? I mean, there's reasonable players on the bench, but not. They're the sort of impact subtype players. They're not stand-in first team players, are they? The ones we've got.
well, they may not be, but they may have to be.
Yeah.
And if they're good enough to be in the first team squad, they should be good enough to do it. And I think if there's a game where their fitness for purpose rather than match fitness is to be tested at home to Fulham on a Monday night is the perfect place for it, you know. I
We've
know
got a
it
couple
didn't
of
go
favourable
well.
ones, haven't we? We got that, and then we got Palace afterwards. So I think a couple of favourable fixtures to maybe do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know it didn't go so well last time. We had a lot of changes playing Fulham, but
Yeah.
we can only hope that our development has come on a little bit since then.
Well, our new guy might have to be the one to address that because apparently, before we started this pod, we appointed a new director of football. Don't know if you saw that, Johan Lange or Lange or Lange or Longa or I don't know how you pronounce it, but we've appointed him as a technical director. I suppose that's director of football.
Yeah, yeah, I did see this being announced. I can't pretend that I know anything about him.
Me neither. Me neither. I think he comes from Aston Villa, I believe.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hope he gets down to business. And of course, Scott Munner's finally started work as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that should be the team in place, ready. That gives them a good 2 clear months to get set for the January transfer window, doesn't it? So,
Well, I hope
you know.
Johan Lange isn't walking around any dark streets where Paratici might be lurking. So I reckon he might pull a revolver on him, and because he seems to have done a pretty decent job, doesn't he? He must, so it must feel him quite aggrieved how everything's kind of unfolded, considering actually the hit rate that he's had at Paratici is it's been pretty damn good, isn't it?
It has been, I mean, tarnished by his association with Conte, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
As well as
yeah.
he, as dodgy as an I'm Bob Note. But if you appoint Italians in a football club, you've got to expect fraud, haven't you, and all the other things that have been accused of. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I when I went to Caprice a few years back, well, not Caprice, sorry, the Sorrento, like Amalfi Coast, everything there was a real undercurrent of. This is shady the way this is run. Some of the people were sort of beating each other up over who's going to take you on this trip or not. That kind of thing is this looks all a bit underworldish.
yeah, well, we had on that slightly tangential note. Well, so we were on an excavation in Pompeii, and halfway
That's near
through
Naples, by the way, isn't it? And Naples is
it is. Yeah,
big.
it's just the other side of Vesuvius to Naples. Yeah. So, I mean, I love it. I've been working out there for about 5 or 6 years now, on and off, and I really rather like Naples.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough as fuck. It really is, But I love it. I love the people there. They're good value, And anyway, we're halfway through this excavation. We had like the sort of royal visit, as it were. Right, everybody's got to make sure they've got the right boots on and the right Ivis jackets because like the directors come in. And everybody kept referring to him as the general. And so I sort of made a bit of a joke about this. And he turned up, in his sort of viscose fabric suit. They love a bit of man-made fabric out there, 35-degree fucking heat, and they're all wearing the suit equivalent of shell suits, And he turned up and shook everybody's hand, and we all sort of, spoke to him, and he fucked off again. And I said to the woman who was my boss, our site director, I said, why do they all call him the general then? Is this a standing joke? And she went, oh no, he is. This is an army appointment, and he is in control of the archaeological area around here. And I said, why is it an army appointment then? And she said, have you not noticed that the Mancio, like the main office complex, is the Carabinieri building? And I said, oh, well, I had noticed it, but I hadn't really thought too much about it. And she said, it's because they have to have all of this stuff in place for the mafia, to stop the mafia. Because this is the economic heart of the Bay of Naples, right?
Yeah.
2.5 million visitors a year and all this money coming and all that. She said they literally have to have an actual general from the army overseeing it all to stop the fucking mafia getting in and having all the money out of it.
Well, if it's not the mafia, it'll be the Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the church out there is one of the richest organizations in the world, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, and there's a big festival of somebody or else other, and it was all going on in the sanctuary where we were, just down the road from the Parco. And I said we sort of had a local cafe after a few days, and I said to the lass, what's this great thing? Because they'd put a stage up in the piazza and there were chairs everywhere, and I was like, you're having the fucking Pope visit or something, and she said, oh no, it's the festival, it's this Catholic festival. And I said, oh yeah, what is it? And she went, the only thing you need to know about is that it goes on for 2 fucking months, and pilgrims come from all over Italy to make financial offerings.
Right, financial offerings, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Ah, well, there we go.
Anyway, there you are. It's a different world.
Yeah, it sure is. Ah, well, vive la différence.
Yeah. So you nearly got beat up by a load of wannabe scousers in your bar over there. It was because it was so hot. I always work with my shirt off in the summer. And because it was so hot and so dusty where we were digging, the one day I had my shirt off and I was walking back through Naples, noticed I had a bunch of lads following me, and they were all very interested and all that. My missus said to me, they're talking about your tattoo, and of course I always forget I've got the cockerel on my back, and it's full size of me back, right? And they were like, fucking hell, they don't seem pleased about all this. And it suddenly occurred to me, like, oh shit, yeah, where it's like, and you look round all the streets and they've all got Napoli Ultras spray painted on all the walls and all this, I said to her, we better get back to the fucking hotel a bit sharpish here, like,
Yeah.
Followed us all the way down the fucking road to the hotel.
See that Oxford professor over there? Let's have him.
Let's have him, his fucking dreadlocks and his fucking chicken on his back, I said to her, if we're lucky, they'll think I'm French. They'll think it's Le Coq Sportif,
Yeah, that's it. Oh, dear. All right, let's round up, shall we, mate? There's been a bit of an epic one tonight. So we'll charge into the Fulham game. We talked about player changes, maybe Højbjerg for Bissouma.
Yeah, I think that's probably the sensible one, isn't it? He seems to trust Højbjerg at least to come on from the bench.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll encourage him to play in a little bit more of a forward role, which, like I've said before, we've seen him do internationally quite effectively. Pairing with Sarr, we have a reasonable central midfield there. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the most obvious one. Yeah. He seems to favour him over Skip, doesn't he? So
yeah. I mean, and he's, to be fair, he's played well. I mean, okay, we nearly shut the bed when he let one get past him in the Luton game. But he's probably the safest option out of them all. He's still very, very committed. So yeah, I think that considering he's played that role, I think that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So predictions?
3-1 Spurs.
Nice.
If not 3-0.
Yeah. You go 3-1. I'll go 3-0.
Yeah.
Cool.
Go for it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a proper good seeing too.
Nice. I like that. And then we'll have a few beers.
Yeah. I'll be down there for it, so we'll have to catch up.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a Monday night game, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a bloody game for me because I've got a family funeral to go to in Lancaster at lunchtime. So it's I'll be diving down to London in the afternoon for that.
I'm sorry to hear that. But and I think the game kicks off at 8. So if there's like 20 minutes of bloody extra time from wasting time, we could be getting home at God knows what time after that game.
Well, you know what'll happen is they always shut depending on which way I go home, they either shut the M25 or the North Circular to work on bits of it
Yeah.
at about 11 o'clock on a weeknight. And whatever happens, if I'm at Spurs on a weeknight, I always come out of the ground 5 minutes after they start shutting the roads.
Well, this is where you need to bring your bulldozer, mate.
Yeah. I've thought about this before. I thought about bringing a JCB down because I can bring a JCB into town and not have to pay the ULEZ charge because it's construction equipment. I could probably just park it outside the ground and nobody would bother, you know?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Watch this
Anyway,
space.
on that note, we'll finish off. I'll just give a shout out to Redemption. If anyone's around, I think they got a new beer, Green Hop beer. I've not tried it myself yet, so maybe that Monday night might partake. But yeah, hopefully I see you there that night, mate.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, long
Okay.
overdue.
And on that note, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
You know, there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, you know, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.